18 months ago, at a barbecue hosted by a mutual friend, I met a woman who instantly captivated me. She was 26, intelligent, and had a sharp sense of humor that kept me engaged. We bonded over our shared love for the great outdoors and adventure, and what started as casual conversations soon developed into something deeper. Our connection felt effortless, and after a few months of getting to know each other, we officially became a couple. The first 6 months of our relationship were nothing short of incredible. We explored new places, dined at different restaurants, and surrounded ourselves with the warmth of our loved ones. Friends and family often remarked on how well we complemented each other, and for a while, it truly felt like we had something special. But as time went on, subtle changes began to surface. Around the 7-month mark, she started bringing up her ex in passing, small, seemingly harmless remarks about how he had handled certain situations. At first, I brushed it off. After all, it's natural for people to reference their past relationships occasionally. But gradually, those remarks became more frequent and, more concerningly, more detailed. She would mention how her ex had an uncanny ability to pair wines perfectly with every meal while we were out dining, or casually remark about the way he used to give her shoulder massages while they watched movies together. Planning a weekend getaway became an opportunity for her to reminisce about how her ex had meticulously curated travel itineraries weeks in advance. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I approached her about it. I told her, openly and honestly, that the constant comparisons were beginning to wear on me. She apologized, assured me she'd be more mindful, and for a short while things improved. But the change was temporary. Soon, she slipped back into old habits, only this time, the comparisons carried an unsettling undertone. It was no longer just about remembering what he used to do, now, she was subtly encouraging me to emulate him. One evening at dinner, she casually suggested, "My ex used to leave little love notes all over the apartment. It was such a sweet way to show affection. Maybe you could try that." Another time, after a minor disagreement about housework, she explained, "My ex and I had this perfect system for dividing chores based on our schedules. It worked so well, maybe we should try it." The final straw came during a dinner with friends. When someone asked about our holiday plans, I was about to answer when she interjected, her face lighting up with nostalgia. "Oh, my ex had the most amazing Christmas tradition. He'd always surprise me with a weekend getaway, planning every detail so perfectly. Maybe you could ask him for some tips on holiday planning." The room fell silent. Our friends exchanged awkward glances, sensing the discomfort that washed over me. I felt humiliated, reduced to a shadow of the man who had come before me. That night, I confronted her directly. I needed to understand why she was so fixated on him. And then, everything clicked. She described the end of their 3-year relationship with striking clarity, almost reverence. He had grown emotionally distant over the span of a month, and when the time came, he took her to their favorite restaurant and gently told her he was tired of the relationship and needed to move on. It was the most considerate and mature way to end things, she mused, as if recalling a cherished memory rather than a painful breakup. In that moment, 2 undeniable truths crystallized in my mind. First, she had never truly moved on from him. And second, she wasn't looking for a partner, she was trying to recreate what she had lost. So, I ended things in the exact same way her ex had. Her words were a mix of admiration and something more, a lingering attachment to the past that she couldn't quite let go of. What truly affected me, though, was how she would speak endlessly about her ex, particularly the way he had ended things with her. She described it as respectful and considerate, a breakup executed with such maturity that it almost sounded like a love letter to the man. It became painfully clear that, deep down, she wasn't fully over him. And as much as it hurt to realize it, I also saw that this attachment was shaping our relationship. It was obvious what she wanted from me, what she expected. She didn't need a new partner, she needed a replica of the past. So, I decided to do what she had unknowingly prepared me for. I would end things in the exact same way her ex-boyfriend had done. For weeks, I meticulously planned the breakup, carefully constructing every detail to match his approach. I took great care to mimic his actions, to follow the same steps he had taken. During those weeks of preparation, her behavior only solidified my resolve. She continued with her comparisons, each one more telling than the last. I became increasingly distant, not in an overt way, but in a subtle, almost imperceptible manner. We maintained our routine, but little shifts were happening beneath the surface. Then, one evening, we made a reservation at the restaurant that had become a favorite of ours during the course of our relationship. As we sat together, seemingly unaware of the tension that hung between us, she resumed the familiar refrain of comparing me to her ex. This time, she told me how her former boyfriend always knew which flowers she preferred. She was waxing poetic about how he had studied abroad, mastering traditional Italian cooking, as though a ghost were sitting with us at the table, his presence lingering even in her words. The weekend before our planned dinner at our friend's engagement party, she went on to recount, for nearly 20 minutes, the details of her ex's proposal to his new girlfriend, information she had learned through social media. She was positively glowing as she described the creativity and romance behind the gesture. She had always admired his flair for dramatic gestures, and in the midst of her storytelling, she looked at me, perhaps unaware of the emotional toll it was taking on me. I stayed calm and collected, assuming the role of the supportive boyfriend, the one who listened intently without interruption. As I strategized, I continued to act the part, never letting on that I was already planning to mirror the very actions that had left her longing for her ex. We had first visited an upscale French restaurant 3 months into our relationship, and I had made the reservation back then. This time, I chose the same spot, another Thursday night, much like the evening she had described with such fondness. She'd once told me that her ex always dressed formally for such occasions, so I followed suit, donning a sharp suit and tie. On the night of the dinner, everything fell into place. The temperature was perfect, the restaurant lively yet intimate, and we were seated at a quiet corner table, just as I had planned. She had received a promotion at work, and her mood was buoyant as she shared the news with me. As we settled into our meal, she began recounting how her ex-husband had thrown her a surprise party to celebrate a similar achievement. I had heard these stories so many times before, but now, with the quiet hum of the restaurant surrounding us, I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Listening to you talk about your ex for the past few months has been quite illuminating," I said, as she finished her tale. It was the first time I had confronted her about her fixation on him, and her expression shifted, surprise flickering across her face. "Can you explain?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity, perhaps hoping for another glowing comparison to her ex. I kept my tone even, channeling the level-headed demeanor she had always admired in her former partner. "What matters most in a relationship is something I've learned a lot about," I said, leaning in slightly. "I know exactly what needs to be done now." She brightened, her eyes sparkling with the hope that I was about to make a grand declaration, that I would promise to be more like her idealized version of him. "You're absolutely right," I continued. "Your ex's approach was really mature. And I've always believed that I could learn something from his methods. In fact, I've learned something quite important." Her smile grew, but before she could speak, I interrupted gently. "Your feelings for him still persist. And the most important thing I've realized is that I now know exactly how to end our relationship in a way that you'll be grateful for." Her expression faltered, confusion clouding her features. "I've also learned that you're trying to reconnect with him through me," I finished. It was as if the air left the room, and the weight of her unspoken truth settled between us. Realization started to dawn as the color drained from her face. She looked at me, disbelief clouding her features. "Can you repeat yourself?" she asked, her voice trembling as she ran through a quick sequence of emotions. Shock, confusion, hurt, and finally anger, as I calmly explained that I had grown out of this relationship, just as her ex had. I was about to end things, just as he had, in the most mature and considerate way possible, at our favorite restaurant. Her voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, tinged with disbelief. "This isn't funny." I kept my composure. "I'm not attempting to be humorous. After some time apart and a level-headed explanation, I'm breaking up with you at the restaurant you've praised for months. Isn't this the ideal way to wrap things up?" I could see her grip tightening around her wine glass, her knuckles white as though she were trying to will herself to stay calm. I continued, "We're ending this relationship because you've been holding on to your ex for so long. You've spent our entire time together trying to mold me into his image, making constant comparisons, offering advice, and presenting his perfect traits as the standard." Her protest was immediate, claiming that I was being unfair, that she had simply wanted to help our relationship grow. But I interrupted, unable to stay quiet any longer. "You're still endorsing him, his ways, his methods. You're blind to how your obsession with him is poisoning this relationship because you're so busy adoring the past." As my words hit her, she began to cry, though the tears that stained her face were not the solemn ones she had once described in her stories of him. Instead, they were messy, mascara-streaked sobs, far from the composed image she'd painted of him. She accused me of being cruel, but I calmly responded, "I'm being methodical, cool, and direct, just like your ex. It's exactly what you wanted. You prayed for this kind of mature breakup, and now you're getting it. But this time, it's real. It's happening to you, not just something you can look back on with nostalgia." She tried to change tactics, offering the idea that no relationship was perfect, that all couples had problems, and everything was fixable. "Maybe we should try couples therapy," she suggested, her tone still hopeful, but clinging to the broken ideal. I shot her down immediately. "Did you and your ex ever consider therapy?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Because I'm not interested in following the same tired script you've been promoting. The waitress, sensing the tension, quietly approached our table but quickly retreated when the weight of the situation became apparent. That's when she snapped. Standing up suddenly, she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the restaurant, yelling at me, "You orchestrated this whole thing, didn't you?" I remained calm. Yes, I did. I went to great lengths to give you exactly what you've been looking for, exactly what you've been talking about for months. I wore the formal clothes your ex wore. I made the reservation at the same restaurant you've romanticized. I've even stayed level-headed, just like he did. This is your ideal breakup, just as you described it. And now here we are. She ran out the door, but that wasn't the end of it. Over the weeks that followed, her actions only revealed why her ex had ended things so strategically. She began showing up at my apartment without calling first, a behavior I quickly pointed out. I'm sure your ex wouldn't have appreciated unannounced visits, either, I said, as I refused to unlock the door beyond the security chain. Wasn't that one of the boundaries you used to praise? She left, but not before threatening that we were far from done. I soon received a strange text from her, claiming that she had some of my things at her apartment, including my grandfather's vintage watch, which I knew I had left on my nightstand. She demanded I come to pick them up, under the guise of resolving things amicably. I responded, "You've been drawing comparisons between me and your ex for so long, I've started keeping track of my possessions. I have pictures of my watch with dates. Should I call the cops to help me find my things?" The watch mysteriously appeared in my mailbox the next day, no note, no explanation. Her manipulative behavior escalated at a dinner party hosted by a mutual friend. Unbeknownst to me, she had convinced everyone to invite both of us, using the opportunity to stage an intervention. She began analyzing our relationship, outlining how we could fix it, and even proposed a plan to get back together. It included daily phone calls and weekly date nights where I could pick her ex-husband's brain. I watched in silence, our friends awkwardly glancing at each other, before I pulled out my phone and played the recordings of our previous conversations, each one where she had praised her ex's breakup tactics, his maturity, his perfect qualities. The last recording was a clip of her comparing me directly to him, again and again. I played it aloud, looking at her and asking, "Here's the evidence of why this relationship ended. Since you love giving presentations, care to explain why it's so thoughtful and mature when he does it, but unacceptable when I do the same thing?" She left in a huff, but her manipulative streak didn't stop there. Weeks later, she staged another dinner at our old French restaurant. She was wearing the same dress from our first date and had a slideshow on her tablet comparing the timeline of our relationship with her exes. She begged me to reconsider, claiming I hadn't followed the same process her ex had, suggesting that I should have given her 3 tries to make things right before breaking up. She reached out to my sister, sending her a long document titled "Why Your Brother Needs to Follow Proven Breakup Recovery Steps." My sister blocked her and forwarded the screenshots to me. That wasn't all. She began sending me calendar invitations, meticulously planned sessions to restore our relationship, comparing me to her ex's methods of conflict resolution. At this point, I had enough. I responded by setting up a filter to automatically decline all of her calendar invites with a message, "Sorry, I'm busy learning how to set boundaries from your ex." Then came the final straw. She showed up at my gym, a place she had never been a member of, carrying yet another folder of relationship improvement strategies, this time based on her ex's workout routines. She suggested that couples should exercise together to bond. I snapped. "You know what I learned from all your stories about your ex?" I shouted, startling those nearby. "You need to get a clue." Her face flushed scarlet as she realized how her actions appeared to others. She slowly walked away, perhaps for the last time. A few days later, I contacted the gym's administration to report her for harassment and considered pursuing a restraining order. That was the last time I saw her, but I've heard through mutual friends that she's now claiming to be focusing on herself after all that happened. 3 months have passed since the breakup, and looking back, I've finally processed it all. The best way to understand someone's toxic behavior is to put yourself in their shoes. While my approach to the breakup may have seemed cold and calculated, it was necessary to shatter the illusion she had built around perfect relationships. Now that I'm back in the dating game, I pay close attention to how people talk about their past relationships. You can learn a lot about someone by how they handle their history. I've kept all the notes and recordings of her behavior, not for my benefit, but so I can trust my gut in future relationships. When I sense something's wrong, I'll know exactly what to look for.